Adventurers Wanted! Hi, everybody!
Woo.
We are your community managers of the Adventurers League. I am Lisa Chen. You might know me as a D&D writer. I play Mercy on Hellspells every Sunday on this very channel. And I host a podcast called Behold Her, all about women and tabletop RPGs. And down there is my co-host, Alan. Alan, introduce yourself.
Hi. I'm a guy that's kind of been around for a bit. My name's Alan. I'm one of the community managers, as Lisa said. I've been involved with organized play for a while, and while I don't have streaming stuff to announce right now, maybe if you hang around for a little bit, I might be able to change that.
All right. If you are new to the Adventurers League, it is Dungeons & Dragons' official play campaign. You can roll up a level 1 character and level them up through any Adventurers League approved material. Take them from your home table to conventions, to different tables when you're traveling. You basically get to take your character wherever you go, and they follow you on your adventures and meet the characters of the people that you meet. Super duper fun. Adventurers Wanted is all about Adventurers League news, announcements, what the community is up to, and this episode, we will be focusing on Season 8, which is coming up super soon. Next week, in fact. We have the content manager, Travis Woodall, on instead of a guest. So later on, in a little bit, we'll be talking Season 8 rules. But in the meantime, we have...
Travis is still our guest.
Yeah, Travis is our guest. He's in Community Zone right now. But for right now, we'll talk about a few other updates that are coming up for the season, including Dungeon Master's Quests, which folks have been asking about for an update for a little while now. We've been working really, really hard, especially Alan. I know, Alan, you're planning on announcing or sharing what we've worked on this weekend, if possible, fingers crossed. Is there any information you want to tease for the community right now?
I mean, I would say something that rhymes with Oathbreaker, but I mean, I guess that's, let's just say it. People have wanted access to Oathbreaker for a long, long time, and there's a lot of content here in Season 8, so yeah, we're just going to spill beans on that one. Oathbreaker is going to be a thing, and you're going to have to earn it. Full details we'll be sharing this weekend, but I'm excited. That's a cool little class out of the DMG.
That's really exciting. I know there's a lot of people who ask if Oathbreaker is illegal, and here is your opportunity to play that class.
Yes. One of the other things that I really want to put out there is that we are more closely binding DM quests to individual seasons. So we'll have some evergreen quests that'll always be out there. The rewards will be pretty standard for the evergreen side of things. But the seasonal stuff, you're going to see some spiffier, shinier rewards, maybe some arguably better like item unlocks and item availability, and some extra flexibility in what you can do at your tables. I know it sounds a little vague right now, but we're still finalizing some of that terminology, and I'm really, really excited. I want to continue that trend of DM empowerment into the quest system as well.
Awesome. Let's see. Next in our notes, we have the content catalog, which I know you've also been working really hard on. What do you have to share with folks on that?
Yeah. So the content catalog, a little bit of history on it. The content catalog I actually spun up because there are so many adventures out there. There are so many like CCC adventures and all sorts of stuff that for a lot of DMs, whether you're new or experienced or you're an event organizer, they just didn't know really where to start. And we didn't have a central repository for all that was publicly visible. Like, we've got some behind the scenes admin stuff, but that doesn't help the local game shop that wants to spin up and have a weekend long game event. So I started compiling all that into a more consumer friendly document where we would include some insight into like, what is the theme of that season, maybe a map of a key city or something. And what we've done here with Season 8 is we've actually taken a hard look at what our current documentation is and some of our like FAQ entries and things of that nature. And I've yanked it out of all that other documentation. And previously, like you click on the DM pack in DM's Guild, and there would be 4 or 5 or 8 supplemental docs. Well, those are going away because I've gutted all of that stuff. And with the help of the team, we have inserted it into the content catalog. And what that means is if you are running season 4 content and you have questions about season 4, and I'm using season 4 as an example just because it was Barovia and that had some pretty specific rulings that had to be issued. You open up the content catalog, you look at the season 4 section, and not only do you have the background of what that season was and what its themes were, and the full listing of all of the season 4 content, you also have all the FAQ entries and how certain things interact with the overall Adventurers League rules and how they interact with Dungeons and Dragons rules to make sure that all of it is in one place for people to go. And yes, that does make it a little bit spoilery, but I think that's a necessary sacrifice in this case, because now that we're several years into the campaign, there's a lot of stuff out there. We want to make it as accessible as possible for everybody.
Yeah, there have been supplements for every single season, and so I think it's a great idea consolidating it and making it as user-friendly as possible, instead of you download the pack of AL information and you see like 20 documents or something that you need to read. Now, a lot of those are condensed into one. So for a lot of people who've been asking us Season 8 questions that are season-specific, some of that information will be in the content catalog, which will be coming out soon.
Mm-hmm. One thing to add on there too is that as we've gone and we've played through all these awesome hardcover adventures, each of those hardcovers has introduced new magic items that were not located in the DMG, which means that with our transition to what you can trade for and what you can purchase and items being unlocked and how we got that all bound over to magic item tables, well, those items just didn't exist in those tables. The content catalog will actually tell you what its equivalent table is, and it won't have the price because that's all listed in the Adventurers League Dungeon Master's Guide, but it'll tell you what the equivalent table is, and if there's any specific like story award or story item usage of it, that's all right there in that chapter.
Yes, I know a lot of people have been asking what happens with those items, so look out for that in the content catalog. I know people have been asking for trading interests as well, so that will help you out. Let's see. So, for Season 8, aside from the rule changes, we have a bunch of new adventures coming out, as per usual. The list of the first few adventures, maybe like the first half of the adventures coming out, are already on our website, dndadventurersleague.org. You go to the Adventures section, and there's a little drop-down, and you click on Waterdeep Adventures, and we have descriptions, level ranges, authors, time of the adventures, and then also, if you really want to catch a premiere, where you can find these adventures premiering first, a month before they're released to the general public. Coming up first, though, is an introductory adventure by the fabulous Will Doyle called Once in Waterdeep. That's DDAL 08-00. And that is premiering at DragonCon and TriCon coming up next week, and will be released on the Dungeon Masters Guild on Tuesday, September 4th. So just a few days before Dragon Heist is released to WPN stores. And this introductory adventure is really exciting because it is taking on a different sort of format than our introductory adventures have done in the past. In the past, it's been like mini episodes that start out pretty simple and then build up a little by little. This introductory adventure, I don't want to spoil too much of what Will has done, but it starts out with a section called, I believe, Story Workshop, where the Dungeon Master works with the players to sort of craft what exactly key elements of the story will be and help create the type of story they want to play. It's a really different approach, and I think it's going to be really, really fun, so I'm excited for people to play that.
It's a cool deviation from what we've historically done. I'm really, really happy with it.
Oh, yeah, totally. And then premiering at those same conventions, DragonCon and TriCon coming up, is the Umbral Aristocracy Trilogy, which is a Tier 1, levels 1 through 4 trilogy. And it starts out as with your finding a treasure map, but there are a lot of twists and turns along the way. Again, won't spoil too much. But that's coming up, and you can go to the website to check out some other trilogies that are coming out soon. Then we have even more adventures coming out for Eberron. Alan, you actually wrote the introductory adventure for this path.
I did.
Is there anything you can share with folks about that?
Sure. I have some tidbits that I can throw out there. This is very much an introductory adventure, and I really wanted to theme it and wrap it around, wrap it around the themes that Eberron presents. So when I think of Eberron, I think of these like detective movies and these noir themes, and shades of gray in a lot of cases, rather than black and white separation like we might see in high fantasy sort of genres. Eberron, you have a lot more moral choice, and it really supports the common the concept of like the common person rising up and becoming their hero and writing their legend, maybe inadvertently. So what we have with the intro is you're going to be playing level 0 characters. So you don't have a class yet, but you do have your race, you've got your background, and there's some pretty specific stuff for Eberron. These are pre-gens that will be distributed with the adventure, and the adventure follows you basically taking on a job, having that job go sideways, and how you deal with that, and the things you discover along the way. It's tied into the final days of the last war, and this is all right in the boilerplate of the adventure, but those pre-gens are actually they're NPCs for the remainder of the campaign. So you get to kind of play the prologue to the ongoing story.
That sounds really cool. And then for folks like me, I'm started playing Dungeons and Dragons in 5th edition. I'm not as familiar with Eberron, and to me, the setting is a little bit intimidating because it feels like there's a lot of lore. And I know that you'd mentioned to me when we were chatting that you took that into account to try to introduce it in a way where people can pick things up.
Yeah, and that's why in my original concept, like I was all set to gung-ho to write this Eberron adventure, and it was a tier, basically it was like a tier 2 thing. And as we all talked as a team, I realized that I could scale it down and use it as an introductory thing. So it's got some interaction with the various dragon marked houses and common things that people might see around the city of Sharn. There's a great big airship because, Eberron and airships. But I wanted to introduce those things without them feeling overwhelming, but at the same time, I wanted them to feel special. So it's not that you interact with a member of a dragon-marked house and it just feels like another faction, and you don't see an airship and you think, well, that's just a fantasy thing, it's an airship. There's a reason for why those are important, and hopefully I've communicated it really well in the adventure. Playtesting has gone really well, so I am both really, really excited to get this out in the wild in a couple weeks, and really intimidated because Eberron's really cool, and I just want to make sure people love it as much as I do.
I just chatting with even just the guild, you and the rest of the Guild Adepts community about Eberron, and everyone's so excited for that setting, so I'm so excited for that setting, and I can't wait to play the introductory adventure so I know what's going on.
Well, we do have a little bit of a preview going on. So the adventure doesn't actually come out until September 21st, right? And that's a Friday. We're looking at like weekly releases for all the Eberron content. However, not too far from where I live, where my office is Grand Rapids, Michigan, and they have Grand Con coming up September 15th and 16th. That Saturday, I'm running one table of the Eberron intro, and it is for a charity called Jasper's Game Day. So the tickets on that might already all be sold out, but yeah, we're running that adventure a week before it releases to the public, and they will be the first people to see it out in the wild.
So cool. If you want to check out more about the introductory adventure or the other adventures that are coming out, again, our website, dndadventurersleague.org. In the adventures section, check out Embers of the Last War, and that has details on all of the adventures coming out in this particular Eberron adventure path.
Yes.
All right. So moving on, just to shout out a few notable events coming out. I know that you have something really cool happening at GameholeCon, but I'll shout out a few other events first. In Pennsylvania coming soon, and my face is going to disappear because I have some cool pictures to show you guys. In Bryn Athyn, Pennsylvania, at Glencairn Museum, they are doing the Red War Epic. The museum itself looks like a miniature castle, so they're kind of playing off of that D&D in a castle thing, like it's a mini version. That is happening.
It looks amazing.
It looks so cool. Alan can't see these pictures, but folks in chat can see these pictures. On September 8th, that is happening. It is befitting Feel Good, which is an organization fighting to end poverty. If you're interested in attending that event and you are nearby, go to warhorn.net. If you just search museum, that should bring up the event for you. But yeah, those pictures, that space is amazing. I wish I could attend, but I will be attending Queen City Conquest, which is happening that same weekend, that whole weekend, in Buffalo, New York, at the Buffalo Niagara Convention Center. They have a lot of Adventurers League going on, in addition to other things. I will be there running, I think, the first rounds of my new author-only event set in Lamortia in Ravenloft. So I've never been to Queen City Conquest, but I'm told that that is a wicked fun time. And then finally, the last event I wanted to shout.
Speaking of someone who's gone to QCC, it's great.
Oh, yeah? Oh, I'm really excited.
Yeah, QCC is great. Yep.
And then the last event I wanted to shout out, which I pulled from our convention map on our website. If you're organizing an event, definitely make sure your event is on our convention map. But in Italy, Colli del Tronto, Italy, there's a place called Colli Comics, and they are also doing the Red War Epic on September 9th. So you can find that event on the convention map itself, and that's really exciting that the Adventurers League is happening internationally in Italy. Super cool. But at GameholeCon coming up, the admins are doing something cool. Alan in particular is doing something cool, so I wanted to let you chat about that.
Hey, you guys are all a big part of this too. I'm going to be DMing all of you people through a very special charity game. And this is going to have some twists in it. So GameholeCon is in the middle of November. It's the second weekend of November out in Madison, Wisconsin, and it's a pretty good time. There's a lot of people there, a lot of industry people, and a huge number of very passionate fans. Last year was my first time. It was great. I'm running our Extra Life Adventurers League streaming game, so everyone around the world will be able to watch this, and we're going to be talking about participation methods as time goes on, but there will be tie-ins because the global admins, other than myself, because somebody's got to run this this motley crew, the rest of the admins are going to be playing key NPCs from the Adventurers League campaign. So, Lisa, have you decided who you're going to play?
I am super excited to be playing Seer, one of my favorite NPCs.
Yes. We had that little demo game at Origins, and it was pretty cool. I'm looking forward to seeing you back at the table with that. Travis, who we'll be talking to shortly, he's going to be playing a very special character that is amazing, the way he plays it. All sorts of familiar faces will be there. And that's 5 of my 6 players. Our 6th player has not been formally announced yet, and I'm waiting for just a little bit more information from their people and our people and stuff. But I'd say probably by the end of next week, so right around the launch of Season 8, I should be able to formally announce who this person is. It is a D&D celebrity, and I'm super excited. Spoiler, this D&D celebrity also has an NPC that's been worked into the written products already, so that's all I can say for the moment. But I'm really, really psyched. We're going to be playing a level out of Dungeon of the Mad Mage, which releases that Friday. We've got a terrain build out, all sorts of stuff. It's going to be big, crazy fun times, and I'm super stoked.
Yes. I will say Seer has already foreseen who this celebrity guest will be.
She's good like that.
Yeah. I'm seeing in the chat that someone had a little trouble with the convention map, so I'm going to shout out their event coming up in September. KingsCon in New Zealand is happening September 15th through 16th. They will also be playing the Red War Epic, so look them up too. But speaking of Travis, we have him in the wings, waiting to chat all about the Season 8 updates with us. So yes. Travis, our special guest, I will be adding you to the overlay now.
He is super special.
Hey, Travis, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you? Let me get my microphone set up here. Okay, how are you doing? Can you hear me?
Travis with his very fancy pop filter.
So my teeth are popping.
So Travis is our content manager. To start us off, can you tell us a little bit about what exactly that means for your role?
So as the content manager, I am ultimately responsible for the general flow of the campaign that we run parallel to the hardcover adventures that Wizards of the Coast produces and publishes. I I am sort of the steward of the campaign documents. I make sure that that stuff is all lined up and ready to go at the onset of the new seasons. I maintain the FAQ, but the bulk of what I do is with the adventures themselves and getting them ready to go to conventions where they are enjoyed and played and nitpicked upon and whatnot.
Travis is constantly reading and editing content and making maps for our content.
Yes.
I'd make maps. That's more a hobby. Maps are my passion.
So as we dive into your stuff, Travis, I mentioned that I'm running that charity game at GameholeCon, and Lisa shared who she's playing. You want to share who you're playing?
Seer.
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
You want to share who you're playing?
Oh, I will be playing because I am a what's the word I'm looking for? Christian Bale does it. I immerse myself fully into my roles to the point where I could not bring myself to role play anybody that did not have the same somewhat portly stature that I myself have. So I will be playing the role of Pip Yap during the game at GameholeCon.
So if you're method, please don't.
A method actor. Thank you. Yes, I'm a method actor.
Just please don't bring a full dead cow to the stage. Like that's going to be real
Christian
awkward.
Bale and Brian Dennehy. Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Excellent. I'm looking forward.
It's going to be a hoot and
I
hoot.
love Pip Yap.
And hoot.
And hoot.
So chatting about the Season 8 changes, so why did the admin team / Wizards of the Coast decide to implement some changes?
I mean, ultimately, we can only guess as to, what the higher ups decided. But a lot of the reason that I assumed to be behind the changes were that the kind of the audience that the Adventures League is catering to at this point is slowly changing with the advent of streaming games and online gaming, and it's kind of ushering in a new way to play. And I think that a lot of the changes were implemented to accommodate the more free flow, kind of flexible style of gaming that medium tends to enjoy. So a lot of the, hard set, fast, number crunching, heavy rules are going to be kind of going to the wayside, and giving players and DMs alike a little bit more flexibility in how to play and progress their characters. With checkpoints, you're going to see gone will be the flurry of math at the end of sessions, and it's going to have big implications. The biggest implication is going to be in, the convention setting where, time is very, very strictly enforced. And even, that 5 to 10 minutes at the end of the session, you've got the next DM coming to, set up for the next slot. And the checkpoints is going to be a big help there, where the DM can just, rattle off how many checkpoints the players have got, and they're done. There's no, you don't have to get out an abacus or a calculator and count how many of this monster they did and how many of that monster they did. But the big thing is going to be just, going back to the freedom of play, the how people play. So you may have a table where, they're very into combat, and that is the way that they do adventures written with that in mind. That's a stigma that organized play has kind of come to resemble. So the changes to the rewards, the adventure rewards, is going to allow us to write adventures that have the ability to cater to people who don't necessarily do combat, who want to use exploration or social interaction to get through an adventure. So they're going to let us more fully implement the pillars of play that the game is supposed to be built upon, but in most cases, not totally feasible to completely implement. And then the big kind of the most unpopular one was the changes to the gold, the rate at which we accumulate gold, and I think a lot of that just came from there was some disconnect between what Wizards felt should be awarded and what is actually being awarded, and that gold wasn't necessarily having the impact that it should when you've got characters running around with 500,000 gold, portable hole full of 10,000 healing potions, and when these gold based obstacles are trivialized to the point where in a lot of circumstances they have been, gold just doesn't have value anymore. It doesn't mean anything. Those obstacles just become obsolete. And I think that the changes in how gold is accrued are to remedy that.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
especially the shift from an XP system to this advancement checkpoint system, people could resolve conflicts through role play or social interaction, but you weren't always rewarded for it. It's partially
Right.
up to DM discretion,
Yeah.
and then some DMs will very much say, if you didn't kill the monsters, you're not getting the XP for it, or you're only getting partial XP for it. Now, rather than having monsters you need to kill to advance, you're getting an objective or a goal that you need to achieve. And
Right.
the DM is empowered to react to however the characters want to achieve that objective or goal, and you're rewarded the same as long as you meet that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the checkpoints are going to be pretty neat to see in play.
So you've touched on mostly on what the major changes are going to be in rewards, in how gold is rewarded. The first iteration of these rules that we shared, there was a very passionate response from people. Yeah, very passionate. So what would you say are adjustments we've made in the current version in response to community feedback?
It was tricky because we have, the direction that we have, the ship is on a dedicated course, and we can make adjustments and, to, lateral adjustments, but, this is the direction that we have to go. And, the big thing was, the biggest contention was with gold, and, how, for example, spellcasters and material components, the aforementioned monetary obstacles that the game provides us, and how players are going to deal with that. And one of the suggested accommodations that we were able to make was being able to trade treasure points for gold. Initially, it was something that wasn't really, we didn't want to put a monetary value on a checkpoint. But it was an accommodation that we were able to get. It's not a tremendous amount, but that change in the gold accrual was something that affected the lower tier characters more than it did the higher tier characters. So I feel that what the resolution we came to there is going to hopefully do a pretty good job in solving that problem. Other than that, the treasure checkpoints, we ended up doubling the rate at which they were accrued, and as well as the price of the items that you would buy. And it sounds like it's just it's a wash, but what that does is it gave us a little bit more freedom in how we award treasure points upon completing objectives in the adventure without having to get into quarter checkpoints and stuff like that. So now if you're doing the slow progression, you're getting at tier 1 and tier 2, you're getting a half a point. So it's a nice consistent, and it sounds right, it's a half a point. Instead, if you're doing slow, you're running at half the normal rate, so you get half a point. So that was one of the adjustments that we did. Not a lot with the advancement checkpoints. The factions, we included some renowned stuff that we're going to be building on, and that's actually going to be neat. It's going to be, you know,
It's a
before
pretty
it was
significant thing.
yeah, that was a big one. Before factions, you know, only faction, you only got background, you know, renown based on your faction, but now we're going to have some flexibility with doing it with all the backgrounds. So, you know, expect to see, you know, if you're a rank 3 sage, you know, something might come up with, you know, in an adventure itself. So there's, I'm really excited about the implementing backgrounds as a whole into the renown, into the rank structure, as it were.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, because you are adventuring and doing cool things, so it makes sense. Folks start to notice.
Yeah.
So what would you say has been the toughest part of working on these changes?
Trying to, because you're never going to be able to make one rule that's going to make everybody happy. It's just, there's no way to do it. So really the ultimate goal is to make as many people happy with that one rule as you can. And, you know, there's bound to be folks that, you know, are going to leave, you know, with a little bit of a bitter taste, but we really want to make that number of people as small as is possible. So that's the toughest part. Getting feedback can be tricky because, you know, we're here in, you know, at the onset of season 8. This has been going on for a long time. Everybody's invested in their character and in the program, and that shows in the feedback that we get. But it's super hard to kind of temper that passion with, you know, really trying to provide, you know, and obtain constructive criticism. So, you know, and when we have like the announcements on the Facebook group, you know, where there are 1,500 plus post threads, it's really, really hard to go through there, just because, you know, as you load more and more comments, the strain, just the physical strain on your computer becomes such that it takes an hour and a half to get through, you know, through the thread. So, you know, filtering through that to get to the substantive, the meaty, you know, good constructive criticism becomes a challenge, but it is what it is.
For those watching, Travis really does spend so much time trying to read every single comment and parsing through comments, long and short, that might have a lot of, shall we say, passionate words, to try to find those nuggets of what is actually the crux of the issue this person has, and is there a way that I'm able to address it in the constraints that we're given. So props to Travis. Slash all the admins, really, but I know Travis spends a lot of time doing that.
Yeah. And that said, there's something I want to throw in on that front, too, is like this passionate response we've gotten all this stuff. Yeah, some of the comments have been maybe not the greatest, but ultimately, like you were saying, there can be nuggets of real wisdom that we can pull out of some of that stuff, even when it's coded in maybe not the best choice of words.
Yeah, and there absolutely are, because there's only 6 of us, and we've got thousands and thousands and thousands of people in the community that just really, you know, they extrapolate stuff differently than we do, and can see stuff from a different perspective that we can. And yeah, so getting the feedback from the community is super important and difficult.
And I appreciate everyone that's taken the time to comment on those things and to share their input. Even those of you that have like tagged some of us in those discussions or sent PMs, even if it looks like we haven't responded, we are looking at that stuff. And the influx here, combined with the fact that we are still all working day jobs as well, we may not be able to directly respond to everything, but we are reading everything. So thank you.
Now, I know I've seen some positive feedback also in these humongous threads, but I've gotten a bunch of private messages from folks who are excited about the Season 8 rules, and I'm wondering, Travis, if you can speak to what has been some, like, good feedback we've gotten on the changes.
There are a lot of people that have reached out to us via, you know, whether it's in the Facebook post themselves or by email or by private messaging or whatever, that are looking forward to the changes. You know, they're acknowledging that, you know, gold is out of hand, magic items are ridiculous, you know, whatever. You know, and the feedback that we've received, has been, it's been mixed, but I have received a lot of good feedback. People that are happy that we are trying to do, the best that we can with what we've got, and we and that we appear to have the program's best interests at heart, and that makes me feel good. The problematic items has met with some mixed reviews, but for the most part, I get the impression that the suggestion is viewed mostly favorably, just because when you have higher tier tables, especially, you've got a table where there's 3 simulacrum, there's 2 shield guardians and a slod, and it's like, okay, well,
and my slot is wielding Hezeron.
Yeah. And as somebody who doesn't really go that route, when I'm at that table, it's a problem for DMs and players alike. So the DM's got to deal with basically a table that's twice the size as it should be. But you got players who, like myself, who don't do that, and and I'm not saying it's wrong, but when I'm it's just me, and and it takes me an hour to really get my turn to do anything, and by then everything's pretty much dead. It's like, well, there's that. I can role play in a silly voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the problematic items, having a list of things that we don't want, that people shouldn't have, kind of stings. But if it's what the program wants, and if it's what the program needs, then that's that's what's going to happen.
Do you have a change that you're most looking forward to?
The adventure format. Yeah, the adventure
tell
format.
everyone a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the adventure format, I'm really excited about that. So we saw a preview of it with Rakma, the adventure that the introductory adventure for Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. It's way less. It's going to be a little bit more sandboxy, a little bit less on the rails, but it's going to be a challenge for for established DMs. For established DMs, it's going to be kind of rough, just because it doesn't have the here's a bulleted list of every single possible situation that can arise and how to react to it, that the old adventures tended to feature. So this one is going to be real light on that kind of stuff. It's more or less just going to paint a picture of the situation, who's there, and just kind of what they know and what their goals are, and it's going to let the DM just kind of fill in the blanks. It's got in a lot of the scenes, the encounters, it's going to have an entry called Playing the Pillars, where each of the 3 pillars of adventuring, combat, exploration, and social interaction, are going to be addressed with suggestions for the DM to use as depending on what choices the players. So if you have the objective of the adventure is to infiltrate the Thieves Guild, so you can kick in the front door and fight your way to the head mugwump of the gutter filth ruffians, or whatever they're called, and the combat entry in the Playing the Pillars will kind of give you some insight on what the foes that they might encounter would do in reaction to that. The exploration entry might give if they go in through the sewers, here's what they can expect, or they can go and try and go through the roof, there's a hidden hatch on top of the building, and then the social might pit, the characters can go to a rival gang and solicit their help to beat up the gutter filth ruffians, and or they may even just try to use persuasion or intimidation to smooth talk their way into the guild, and buy the whole operation out from under the mugwump's head and run it themselves. So it's going to give the DMs a lot more flexibility on how to run the adventure based upon the choices that the players make. And this is where the advancement checkpoints and the treasure checkpoints are going to be nice, is because it takes the tendency of players to try to play in a way that's going to maximize their rewards. It takes that out of the equation, and it just kind of takes those those chains off and lets them just do whatever they want to do with what they've got, and without worrying about, well, if I don't do it this way, I'm not going to get as much experience, or if I don't do it this way, I'm not going to get as much gold. So between the new format and the adventure check and the advancement and treasure checkpoints, I am super stoked to see how the dynamic of how the adventures are going to be run. It's going to be nice.
I got to tell you, I'm finishing up my 4th adventure with the new format, and it is so much easier to deliver an intended story, because now I'm not delivering encounters. I'm delivering linked events that form a more vibrant picture.
Yeah, like I was having minor panic because I wrote the 3rd adventure in the first trilogy, and I was having minor panic attacks, when I first started, just because it's so different than the format that we've had. And I couldn't wrap my head around it. And I just, played a couple matches of Overwatch and sat back and just thought about it. And you just have to come at it from a different view. And I think that's what the DMs are going to be like as well. It's going to be daunting to, to try and to feel like obliged to be able to think on the fly a little bit more than you would with the previous format. But at the end of the day, it's just, you just have to look at it differently and adapt. And once you've figured that out, it's gonna be dope.
I was very much trained how to DM through the Adventurers League. Everything I started out with was Adventurers League modules. So I feel like it might be daunting at first, but it's really empowering the dungeon masters more. It's empowering the players more. They don't have to resolve something in a way that's written exactly in the adventure. They have more freedom. And so if we're training dungeon masters, I think we're going to be training better dungeon masters.
Yeah, for sure.
And given the new kind of DM, the new kind of players and DMs that we're getting, the people that are more focused, that have been exposed to D&D more through online gaming and streaming than through playing in a store and stuff like that. This is the environment that they're going to be, that they're just going to, this is the way it's going to be, this is the way it's always been for them. So you're going to have just a completely different crop of people playing, and it's just going to, that's just going to be how D&D has always been for them. So I think in the long run, this is going to be just this is the future of how D&D is going to be just across the board. And I'm super excited for it.
Yeah, my first batch of playtesters using the new format here, I turned over what's basically a dungeon crawl over to the Wizards of the Coast customer service team. They had a team building day, and I gave this off to them, and they were pretty open with well, not all of our players are really experienced, not all of our DMs are regular DMs, and they were able to pick it up and run with it. And when I gathered the playtest feedback, not a bit of it was this is hard to follow or this didn't make sense. And there were a bunch of comments that were this gave me the freedom to do what my table, as a DM, this gave me the freedom to respond to what my table was doing rather than guide them from A to B to C. So it was really cool to see that from a lesser experienced group.
Yeah. Yeah, plus it's going to require, for designers doing dungeon crawls and stuff like that, it's going to require a little bit less effort on their part, because if you're presented with, a 15-room dungeon, that's a big dungeon, you only really have to flesh out the ones that are really important. And then the DM can just put whatever they want into the other ones. Maybe the orcs have a hair salon. We don't know.
You don't
yes, orcs hair salon.
Maybe they want that. Who are we to say that they don't want to look nice?
Right?
Oh, I love that.
I'm going to make a note of that in this one.
Yeah. Can we just have a whole orc hair salon trilogy, please?
Waterdeep's a big place. I'm sure we can.
Waterdeep is a big place.
All right. So we are going to take a few minutes to answer some questions that people have in chat. Before we move on to that, Travis or Alan, was there anything you wanted to add in regards to Season 8?
Nothing about Season 8. PAX West begins in T-minus 6 days for me, and we'll be running some Adventures League there. We're running a CCC that I wrote. It's not Season 8, but it's we'll be running a CCC that I wrote in conjunction with as somebody who lives in the Pacific Northwest. I'm very passionate about beer. There's a brewery in Olympia that I frequent pretty often. I found out that one of the folks there likes to play D&D, and we worked with a shop in the area to get some stuff sponsored for PAX. So we'll be running the Vormistron's Scroll series of adventures at PAX, and it's going to be fun.
I saw the playgroup for the first part of that trilogy last time I visited Seattle, and they look like they're having a blast with it. So good luck. Let us know how it goes. It's
going to be Anhoot. Another Anhoot.
Another Anhoot.
All right, so we're going to move into some questions from chat, which our moderator, TK, has joined the fray, is curating for us. So thank you very much, TK. So the first one, we knew we were going to get this question, guys. There's a couple of them, so I'm going to kind of combine them into one. But how are we feeling about the response to concerns about gold and factions? And for gold, someone asks in particular if there's anything we're going to do to help out casters and heavy armor wearers who are maybe a little more affected by these rules.
I mean, a lot of that will fall on the DM to kind of, fix on the fly. Not necessarily fix on the fly, but accommodate. But really, Wizards has been pretty clear in that, that when you start getting into like the realm of heavy armor, like plate and half plate, those are the two kind of big benchmarks that you look at when you're talking about purchasing mundane equipment. And they've made it pretty clear that that's a tier 3 thing. So, we've between, the level-based gold, if you're really hard up to do it, it's possible to get it in the lower reaches of tier 2, but it's going to tax your, resources to the point where, that's going to be the priority. So it's gold means something. It's, when you have, 500,000 gold floating around in your portable hole and nothing that you buy, really, it's just, your gold is to the point where, casting, Hero's Feast at the beginning of every adventure, or casting a new, obtaining a new simulacrum at the beginning of every adventure. These fiscal obstacles exist for a reason, and when, we can ignore them, then the gold just doesn't have a value. So it's gonna be hard adjusting to that lifestyle, but the being able to trade treasure checkpoints in for gold, even if it's only 50 gold, it's that's going to help mitigate some of it. Now, spell books, we've got some plans for spell books, finding them in the adventure. Those, if you find one, you can take it. You won't necessarily, you'll still have to do the copying and everything like that, but it's not going to be something that we're going to attach a treasure checkpoint or gold cost to. One person at the table can take it. But other than that, Wizards are going to have some tough choices to make. It's not going to be, the Pokemon style of spell collecting where, you just collect every spell you can get your hands on because you can. It's going to be, what spells should I take because I only have this much gold.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So our next question, this is interesting because I'd not thought of maps this way. Will the new adventures have maps suitable for virtual tabletop, as opposed to the old maps, which are sketch-like and better for conventions?
So maps are, any kind of art asset is largely going to be the responsibility of the adventure designer to either produce on their own, commission, or whatever. I just have a particular way of doing it that I like doing them, and usually I do them because the adventure designer just either didn't do it or wanted me to do it or whatever. But that said, there are adventure designers who have submitted their own in a particular format, but what the maps end up looking like is going to be largely dependent on who does them. And if they're me, then Sharpies and microns.
And there's no requirement to have a map distributed with any adventure.
No.
Right.
No requirement to have a map, no requirement to have a .mod file. If you put them in there, it's like, for example, my adventures, I always get a mod file commission, because that's something that folks want. But these are all assets that constitute additional expense on the designer's part. So it's their discretion whether or not they, reach out to Mike Schley and have him do like a big old fancy, 20,000 hour, Photoshop map, or if it's me huddled over my rickety desk with a pile of markers doing it. So
yeah,
well, I think last I knew Mike had like a 2-year lead time, so I mean that might be
mm-hmm.
I think Techno Scald asked that question. So Techno Scald, if you're still in the chat, let me know what exactly makes a map better for virtual tabletop. I'd love to hear your input on that too. All right, next question. If the goal is to incorporate more types of play, is there any push to include more item drops that don't focus solely on healing and damage?
Yes. In fact, that's one of the things that our adventures are going to, that's one of the things that I've really been trying to make focus on, as far as for the items found in the adventures that we produce, is focusing more on like utility, like fun items, like fun, interesting stuff that's going to be usable outside of, a fight, stuff that will support the social pillar and the exploration pillar as well. So, and this is guidance that we put out to the CCC adventures as well. Like, don't just load your stuff up with Vorpal swords and, pickaxes of Yeti slaying or whatever. Like, this is your opportunity to really, and the big thing is because, you have a finite number of checkpoints that you're going to be able to spend on items. So you want to buy items that are going to suit the way that you play, not necessarily the way that the adventure thinks you should. So expect much more along the lines of utility items that can be used outside of initiative order.
Cool. I love those types of items.
Yes.
Our next question is, how will the new format play with rules as written? For example, in a recent CCC mod I played, the DM allowed us to skip an entire section about finding the black market. One player used their city secrets background, even though that technically isn't rules as written for the feature. They were short on time. What will that type of flexibility be explicitly allowed in the new format?
Yes. So incorporating, especially with background stuff, incorporating backgrounds is something that I'm going to make a point to encourage very, very strongly among the adventure designers. In my adventure, there's a whole episode, but one of the bonus objectives where you have to do a bunch of stuff for a bunch of different people, and the DM is strongly encouraged and directed to incorporate backgrounds into that. So backgrounds, along with the renown stuff we were talking about previously, expect backgrounds to play a larger role in the adventures, and the DMs are going to have a lot more flexibility in how they incorporate that.
This question might be more of an Alan question. Someone is playing at a convention coming up, and they have lots of questions about DM rewards and quests. Can we say anything about quest changes and how they're going to affect banked rewards from past seasons?
We've talked about how we want to handle those banked rewards. The short answer is don't burn them all out right now. We're not doing a force expire of all that stuff on the launch day for Season 8. When the DM quest and the content catalog stuff launches here over the next couple of days, we'll have some more crunchy information about how those rewards are intended to be handled going forward, and how previous seasons of quests will be handled going forward as well. We are not instituting a hard stop on all that stuff. That's a comment I've seen come up a couple of times, and an accusation a few times, and I'm not sure where that came from, but don't sweat it. Your rewards are earned. They are there. We'll talk about the intended use of those here in the very near future.
Yeah, if there is an expiration date, it will be in the far future. We definitely want to make sure people have plenty of time to use those rewards that they've earned.
Correct.
All right. Next question is about problematic items. And why are the problematic item treasure points having to be spent right away? Let's see, and they're wondering if there's any possibility of those being banked instead.
The intention behind that was because they're untiered points. They're not assigned a tier like normal treasure points are. And we wanted to resolve the we wanted that whole situation just to be resolved, and then we can move on. So rather than just giving a blank check with a whole bunch of untiered treasure points to folks that have problematic items, we do want them to be used right off the bat, and then once that's done, characters all done being converted, and then we can start playing season 8.
Fair enough.
Yep.
And then I know this is in the works, but I don't know if either of you feel like spoiling a few details. Someone asked, can you tell us anything about how the season 8 Phi Chen's fair is going to change?
We could, but then I think Fei Chen may find us.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, Phi Chen, I've learned some stuff about him. I don't know how I feel about him anymore.
Don't talk about my uncle that way.
Oh. Well, there are some really cool developments coming with Fei Chen. Something that I've really wanted to see us do more with since the beginning, since season 1, is downtime activities. You'll see downtime be a central focus for Fei Chen Enterprises Limited, or whatever lengthy name we go with. Item trading is still going to be a thing, but we're going to be doing some different formatting options. You can expect Fei Chen to be way more involved than previously. Less of, go stand in this line and do a quick trade and go to your next thing. We actually want to have some interactive elements, and details will be emerging soon.
That AL soon. Actually soon, you guys. Season 8 is coming up. Alright, I know we still have a few questions that are unanswered, but we are coming up against our hour mark, so I wanted to make sure we had some time for our last bit of announcements, and Travis has to end his lunch hour that he graciously shared with us.
Today was $3 tuna sandwich day, and I didn't go get one.
We're so sorry, Travis.
Okay,
your sacrifice is real. I know Alan has something pretty cool to share. Before that, I wanted to just give a shout out to Kayla Klein, who illustrated this overlay you're seeing all around us. The illustrations in the corner of this overlay are her renditions of some beloved Adventurers League NPCs. So see if you can name them all, and go check out Kayla's work. Hopefully TK in the chat can help link me her Twitter, because I'm forgetting to handle off the top of my head at this particular moment. Alright, Alan, what is that cool news you wanted to share?
So, in addition to the really cool event that we have coming at GameholeCon, I have another thing that I've just hammered out, about 95% of the details. And the rest of it is just stuff I got to work out with my players, because I'm going to be running a streaming game.
Yay!
Like a long-form streaming game. Here in the wilds of Central Michigan, we have a lot of really cool, really passionate gamers, and we have some new gamers that have been talking to me about, like, how can I get involved, and how can I do Adventures League stuff? And everyone I was talking to was saying, hey, we've got free time, but not until December. So as things all sync up, Beetle and Grimm is releasing their Platinum Edition of Dragon Heist. They're right around the middle of November. That's the big $500 box with all the props and the handouts and like the full version of the code legal for Waterdeep. I'm a huge nerd for props, and that makes me really excited. So I bought one of those boxes, and I'm gathering a team of intrepid characters, role players. In the case of one of them, it's a theater person, so very much a character. We will be playing at a local studio who will be building out a streaming studio specifically for this event. Yeah, I'm super psyched. So we're going to be demoing Adventurers League play, a whole bunch of DM empowerment stuff, new players mixed with experienced players from various backgrounds, the Beetle and Grimm box set, so I'll actually have all those props out for people who were curious about what's included in the box. I mean, you'll know by that point, but you'll actually see people on a screen interacting with all of those really cool trinkets, and we will see where it goes from there.
That is super exciting. So a lot of cool things coming up to look forward to. But we shall wind down Adventurers Wanted. Travis jumped off the call before I got to say goodbye to him. So thank you, Travis, for joining us today.
The power of tuna compels him.
Yeah. And thank you, everybody, in the chat for tuning in, for asking your questions. I'm sorry if we didn't get to your specific one. There were a bunch, and it was awesome to be able to answer them for you today. Until the next Adventurers Wanted, which is every 4th Friday of the month, right here on twitch.tv/DND at 11 a.m. Pacific time. I guess adventure on. Bye, guys.